Hello, I'm Mario Toneguzzi with Faith Spotlight. Today's episode of Ask Father Mike with Father Michael Bombak, who is with St. Stephen Protomartyr Ukrainian Catholic Church. That's a mouthful.
It
In
is.
Calgary. Thanks, Father, for joining us today. We're going to talk about, wait, you're a priest and you're married. So explain that to people who may be kind of scratching their nod.
Wondering about that. Yeah, that's right. Well, Mario, it's I'm part of a Ukrainian Catholic Church, as you mentioned. So that's an Eastern Catholic Church, and so we're an Orthodox church that came back into communion with Rome. And as part of the Orthodox patrimony, like the traditions of the Orthodox churches, almost all of the Eastern Catholic churches have a married priesthood. So it's a tradition that we just simply have maintained. And so the way that it works is that no one ordains, or sorry, no one can be married to a priest after they're ordained. So you have to be married first, and then a married candidate can be ordained to the priesthood. But if he's already a deacon, in fact, it's a subdeacon. It can be dispensed with, but a deacon can't be. So you can't bend that rule. So once you're a deacon, you remain in that state that you're in.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, I know this, on the Roman Catholic side, can you talk a little bit about that? Although, you're on the Ukrainian Catholic side, but can you talk? There are married priests in the Roman Catholic Church that a lot of people don't know if they're not part of a parish, right? And can you explain
Correct. Oh
how
yeah, for sure. So within the Catholic Church period, priestly celibacy is what's called a discipline. It's not a dogmatic thing. It's a discipline that is taken up and sort of required from the priests that way. And so there are actually a number of one of the primary examples is formerly Anglican priests
Yeah.
that they've become Catholic priests now, and they were married before their reception into the Roman Catholic Church. And so there are actually such a great number of them, in fact, that there are more married Roman Catholic priests in the United States than married Ukrainian Catholic priests in Canada. I know that's there's a number of them.
Wow.
So in fact, if we look at it historically, Mario, the even the Roman Catholic Church had the tradition of having married priesthood all the way up to the Gregorian reforms. So, like the first 1,000 years of Christianity, there were married priests even in the Roman Catholic tradition. Now, that being said, there was a movement towards priestly celibacy in the West much earlier than that, but it was with the Gregorian reforms that it became kind of laid down, at least in law, that it would be a discipline.
Okay, so what's running through my head here is, coming back to the Ukrainian Catholics, uh, you know, my, I guess my sentiment would be like, what does it matter? Like if you're married before or after, like, what's the reason for that?
Yeah, so both East and West believe that even if they might articulate it a little bit differently, that there is an ontological change at ordination. So what that means is that it's a change of who and what you are. So in the West, we would say that the man is configured to Christ.
Yeah.
He's changed. It's like kind of like a spiritual tattoo that he can't take off, I guess is one way to put it. In the Christian East, we would use more the language of iconography, that as a man is ordained to the priesthood, he becomes more of a complete image of Christ.
Hmm.
And so that change sort of means that you remain in that state. It doesn't mean that it doesn't degrade any state. It doesn't degrade marriage or anything like that. It just makes it sort of settled, I guess, more solid that way. And there is something to be said, about the fact that our Lord wasn't married. Like that's the argument for priestly celibacy.
Yeah.
The discipline of it. I think that's the strongest one. But that's kind of the rationale. If that makes sense.
So how long have you been married to your wife, Kim, Father?
So we're coming up on 16 years here.
Wow.
So at the end of December. Yeah. Yeah,
Okay.
that's right. Yeah.
And for those out there that don't know, explain to us how many children you have and their ages.
Yeah, so we've got 5 kids. The oldest is 14 and the youngest is 5. And so the oldest is Tobias, the youngest is Ignatius, so 2 boys for the oldest and youngest, and then 3 girls in the middle. And so they are, let me see if I can do this. I always leave this. So we got Tobias is 14, Miriam is 13, Georgia is 11, Philomena is 8, and Ignatius is 5. So all the way down that way. So our oldest son Tobias waited 10 years to have a little brother. He was waiting and waiting and waiting and waiting. Finally has a little brother. So we're very blessed.
So, as a priest, how do you, obviously, the priesthood is a very busy and challenging,
Well, yeah.
if you want to say that. How do you manage to juggle both aspects of your life?
Yeah, well, it's a family affair. I rely very much on my wife. We have a term for a Ukrainian term for a priest's wife in our tradition. It's yimost, or it is dobrodika. And then all of the different Eastern churches actually have a term for that. It's kind of interesting. We've got presbytera in Greek, which basically means like priestess is kind of the wrong way because that has negative connotations, but it's like little mother essentially. So
Yeah.
my wife is not only just, she's not tolerant of my vocation, she supports it. She's actively involved in it. Not, she is not taking up priestly roles, obviously, but within the marriage, within the family, within interacting on Sundays, and you see her here, Mario, at the parish all the time, greeting people, interacting with people. In many cases, actually, the wife is of a priest is the first person that someone will see if they need to talk to Father. Kim, can set that up or let me know or whatever the case is. So how do you juggle it? I'd say that with me personally and sort of the temperament of my wife and myself and our marriage, my wife is actively involved, in that ministry. You have to have good boundaries. You got to know what you can take up and what you can't.
Yeah.
And you can't say yes to everything, that same principle goes with a celibate too. Sometimes people think,
Yeah.
oh, we can't have married priests because our priests are so busy, they have to be celibate. Well, if you're working your celibates into the ground too, like it's also, not a good thing.
Yeah.
Busyness is not an argument for celibacy. Celibacy is such a beautiful vocation, and a special calling, as we
Yeah.
read in the gospel, right? It's incredible.
Yeah.
But yeah, does that kind of make sense? You got to pay in too. It's always spinning plates, right? You've always got like this plate is spinning and this plate is spinning. So sometimes if this plate has been spinning for a while, I know I got to like spin this one a little bit more before I got to spin this one again. So it's
No, I hear
it's
you.
a juggling act. Yeah.
You mentioned your wife Kim, but also the children, right? It's a family affair because I see the children up and being kind of ushers and stuff like that. So
Yeah.
of course the eldest on the altar as a server as well.
Right. It's a real joy as a priest, to have my son there serving with me, for me to teach him that, and I know that I sort of felt my calling first. I could identify it when I was serving as an altar boy. So I see this as an opportunity for Tobias to discern his calling, whatever that is. If he's called to the priesthood, then it'll help that way. If he's called to have a natural family and work in the world, it'll help that way too. But it's formation, it's human formation. That's a beautiful thing. So, but you're right, Mario. Our girls sing, like they'll sing in the liturgy, and Kim will sing in the liturgy, and they'll carry candles or whatever, and usher, and really it's yeah, it is a family affair.
But to be honest, Father, I've seen this movie before, but and I've seen it in with other, even in the Roman Catholic stuff, where the families of a priest aren't really part of the church. They're there maybe, but they're not really actively part of it. And what I find amazing and truly, you know, uh, from your perspective is the full in of the whole family in this.
Yes, we're all in type of people. That's like 100% or nothing. That's our motto. So we're all in. It's a joy, It's a struggle too, Mario. A priest, a married priest. I don't want to like using the term vulnerable sounds a bit, I don't know. It might sound a bit be put offish, but a married priest is vulnerable in many ways, because um, of the dynamics within a parish and how is the family going to be received and all the rest of that. But on the flip side of that, the ministry potential is amazing.
Yeah,
You come with your own support network,
yeah.
and it's a beautiful thing.
So talking about support network, let's rewind the clock for a
Yeah,
second, and so you were married before you were ordained.
right.
Tell us about that process, and obviously you had to get the support of a very important person to do this. So
Exactly.
explain
Oh yeah, yeah.
explain that.
Sure. So I discerned a calling from when I was young. We chatted about that last video a bit. But early on in our marriage, even when we were dating, I'd mentioned to Kim, this had been on my heart, in the past. And it was something that was kind of brewing, but under the surface. And I was very open with Kim, about this was happening before. And as we continued to mature in our marriage, it started to come more to the fore. And so I was very open with her about, this could be a possibility, and we talked about it. And we had already decided that we weren't gonna pursue it right away. We were gonna,
Yeah.
we were gonna pursue it, but we were gonna wait until we were, financially stable, and we had just taken out a fixed term mortgage on our place and all the rest of that stuff. So it didn't make a lot of financial sense to go right away. But what I was doing, Mario, was I was chipping away at the academic work, because to be a priest, there's a lot of
Yeah,
academics
yeah, yeah.
involved. And so I'd go for a summer school program, a couple of those every summer. I was teaching, but I would in the summer I'd go to do my theology classes, and that really helped. It wound up shaving like a whole year off of my studies, and a lot of other classes from my undergrad transferred in, which was really good. So that helped. But basically, I was praying there one summer in the chapel at the seminary, because that's where they were doing that in Ottawa, those classes. And I discerned that it was time to go. Like the Lord put it on my heart. Now's the time to go. And so came back home and talked about it with Kim. And it was a big surprise that way that we were going to go, because we had just decided we weren't, but we did make the journey, and I'm so grateful we did, because it was the Lord's timing for that.
So how critical is it for that support from the spouse to
Yes,
be not only a priest, but a deacon as well? And how
yeah,
critical is it to have that support?
100% critical.
Yeah,
So without that, so firstly, like just canonically, rules wise,
yeah.
um, you can't be ordained without a handwritten letter from your spouse saying
Oh,
that not only are you aware, but that you actually support the vocation. So
interesting.
so that's essential. So in my file, our bishop has a written letter from Kim saying that she supports it. But just on a practical basis, um, a, a married priest is every priest is always ministering to families, and his example and his way of life is also out there in the public eye. And so is the his marriage. Like it's something that people see and recognize and notice. And so the support of a married of a priest's wife is essential. Now, that being said, Mario, it really does depend on the personalities and the gifts of the priest and the priest's wife. Like it,
Mm,
they're not all the same. There are some priest wives who are 100% supportive, but are much more in the background. You wouldn't, they're not exuberant and loud and extroverted like my wife is. They are a little bit more hidden, but they're still just as active. They just are doing different things. There are some priest wives that sing at the liturgies, and they're involved that way. There are priest wives that teach catechism. There are priest
yeah.
wives, yeah, like, so there's all sorts of different ways of doing it. But without that support, like for a married man to want to go to the priesthood, it's got to be a family affair, plain and simple, and
Yeah.
it's necessary.
Um, when when you're out and about with your family and somebody finds out or discovers that you're a priest, kind of reactions do you get?
Well, it really does depend. I here in the prairies, there's a lot of Ukrainians.
Yeah.
So I find here it's much more accepted right away, or at least understood right away. Whereas in out in Eastern Canada, I remember when I was in seminary there, Kim and I joined a marriage group, and a Roman Catholic marriage group. And when they found out I was a seminarian, they said, "You're like Protestant, right?" And I said, "Oh no, I'm just as Catholic as you are."
Yeah.
And so it was just a bit misunderstood. So I've had the whole range, people being scandalized, people being just interested, well, that's kind of interesting. People convinced that they're misunderstanding me, or I'm misunderstanding them. But usually it doesn't take long, and you can explain it, and it's very well accepted. So.
Now, being married and having a family. Now, I don't know what the word to use here, but I was thinking, do you think you have a bit of an advantage over other priests because you're living the life that I'm living, and
Right.
that 90% of your parishioners are
Right.
living, so you understand what they're going through.
Correct. Yeah, I think it's like anything else, Mario. There's pros and there's cons. So it, a married man is like, statistically, married men live longer. They're taken care of better. They are. I live with someone who knows my patterns and my hangups and my issues, and if something's going on, she's going to be the first to know, and she's going to let me know.
Yeah.
And that's good. So I have the ability after liturgy to come home to a whole nother community of people that need and love me, and I've got companionship and other responsibilities as a dad, obviously, but that's a real joy for me, right? So I would say in some ways the married state is actually quite stable, and that's a good thing. And so that's part of it. The other thing too is that a married man is going to be able to give you insights into, like married life, family life, raising kids, in a unique way. It doesn't mean that celibates can't. Like, celibates come from families too. Celibates have special graces through the sheer virtue of their celibacy. Celibacy is a beautiful gift, and the Lord gives graces through that in other ways. So, but to have that to have that insight because you're in the trenches or living that example yourself, like, there's a virtue to that. Where you're not going to have advantages, okay, is in the fact that a married like a family is less movable. So if father so and so, in Tuktoyaktuk dies, I can't just up and go and replace him like a celibate could.
Yeah.
My wife is intimately involved in all the schooling of our kids, and our kids are in school, and we've got roots here, as you have to as a family. So they're less movable. When they arrive, when they put down those roots, though, they're more stable. So you have
Yeah.
a trade-off. It's like a team approach. I think that celibates are have wonderful gifts in a particular way, and they're balanced by their married brother priests, and that's beautiful. Both are needed. Both are needed.
All right, wonderful. Well, that was excellent, Father Mike. I appreciate you taking the time again to chat about this. And so I'm thinking, and because we brought up the issue of the kind of the Eastern Rite, and so next episode next month, we'll chat about that. We'll chat about the Eastern Rite versus the Roman Rite and the difference. Like, why the heck do I do this 100 million times in Mass? Or say, Lord have mercy, 100 million times. All right.
That's great.
Okay, super.
Awesome.
Okay, thanks, Father Mike. That was Father Michael Bombak, who is pastor at St. Stephen Ukrainian Catholic Church in Calgary. I'm Mario Toneguzzi. Thanks for joining us today.
Tomorrow.